Well, good afternoon, everybody. Woo, there you go. I love it. I love it. You know what? I was about excited about that energy, and now I feel like that was not enough. So I'm going to be that guy and be like, let's do it again. Good afternoon, everybody. There we go. That's what I feed off of. Thank you very much for that. It's all about me. Welcome to the Canon Creative Studio. My name is Jay Holben. I am the technical editor of American Cinematographer magazine. And American Cinematographer is really proud to partner with Canon to do these panels here at the Sundance Film Festival. So it is really my honor to be here with these incredible three ladies today to be talking about the documentary Selena y Los Dinos. And we have Isabel, the director. Come on, don't make me prompt you every time. That's not cool. We have, I just derailed myself. We have Lorena, the cinematographer, and Cassandra, the camera operator. Now, Isabel, I'm going to put you in the spotlight immediately because I would love for you to tell us about this film, what we can know about it, and give us a little insight into what Selena y Los Dinos is about.
So, first of all, I'm so honored to be here, especially alongside these two ladies who are truly my favorite cinematographers, or amongst my favorite cinematographers working in the biz right now. So thank you very much. But woo! As far as the film is concerned, we made a film called Selena y Los Dinos. It's about Selena Quintanilla. For those of you who don't know her, she's the queen of Tejano music, and she tragically passed away almost 30 years ago in 1995. And so this film is a celebration of her and her music and her life, and we got access to the family archive and collaborated with the family, and it's the first official documentary of the family. And that's the film.
Sounds great. I'm in. Let's go. Everybody's going to go see it right now. Tell me a little bit about how you got involved in this project and why you wanted to tell this story.
So I'm Mexican-American. Selena has always meant so much to me since I first saw her film, and like when I was very young. It came out in 1997. I think that's true of all of us. Selena was just, you know, a symbol of resilience and of power and of strength. Her music and the family's music has just been part of the fabric of my entire life. So when they reached out to me, I mean, it was just a no-brainer. And particularly when I started seeing the archival film in the film that they had, I was so excited and blown away by it.
Yeah, that's really a goldmine, right? When you actually have a wealth of archival material to work from. It's one of the biggest struggles of telling a past story. How did you wind up integrating that into the film? So
the film, I wanted the archive to speak for itself, and it really is an archive-driven film. And it was my first time doing archival film. In the past, I've done Verite. Cassie and I worked at Vice on HBO together. Like, we have done, I'm just used to like on-the-ground filmmaking and had been doing that my whole career. For this film, I really wanted this beautiful archive just to kind of live and breathe. And so we wanted the interviews to integrate into that archive in kind of like an aesthetically relevant way. And there's also, this isn't a spoiler, I hope, but there's a part of the film where we go to present day and see what the family's doing now. And we also wanted that to feel very photographic and to speak to the archival. So I collaborated with Lorena, who is an incredible director and DP. I mean, her work is just so beautiful and was like of the like essence that I wanted it to feel like. And Cassie, I mean, we've just worked a lot over the years, and I I really wanted her on the ground. She's also a photographer. I wanted to make sure she was there to like look at these frames because it is so photographic. And I really belabored the process of putting together the camera team. I mean, my producer's out here. He can speak to it. I really belabored the decision-making process around it. And this was just like the perfect team. But to answer your question very simply, the new footage that we integrated really was kind of paying homage to the quality and the texture of the archive that we received.
You brought up an interesting subject that we don't really talk about too much, which is the decision of the team that you're going to be working with, as opposed to, oh yeah, I've worked with Cassie before, I'm going to bring her along. And how did you arrive at these two? Pretend they're not here. You can talk about them.
They're amazing. Okay, so Lorena, we have a mutual friend. They went to Tisch together, and Lorena has DP'd, but is also an amazing director. And I looked at her work, and I wanted, she's not a documentary DP. Like, there's a lot of documentary DPs, and I respect and admire them and have worked with them a lot, but I wanted to work with someone who had a slightly different sensibility, and I just love the quality of Lorena's work. Like, it's very intimate and like soft and feminine, and it's just so beautiful. Like, it really, like, the imagery is like, you feel a lot, even just from looking at the images. And she's also just like, and I don't know if they know this, but I did so much homework before. I asked references, I looked through their work, and Lorena is just amazingly technical too, because we were fitting a lot of really long interviews in a very short amount of time. So I wanted to make sure I was working with a DP that knew how to light and how to gaff and how to communicate to a crew really effectively and efficiently. And so as soon as I found, because I was asking everybody for recommendations, and as soon as I found Lorena, it was like, this is who I want. Like, we need to work around her schedule. This is who I want. And then, Cassie's photography, it's just so, so beautiful. And I've been so inspired by her work over the years. We met when we were like in our mid-20s. And Cassie is now a cinematographer. But Cassie, because of her photographic background, like, she's just so good at composition. And so when I was thinking of how to have two people that could complement each other, I thought that these two skill sets would really work really well together. So anyways, I was like, well, we need to make sure Cassie can do it too. So Daniel, my producer, like, please just make sure you can find a period of time where they're both available. And that's how we came to work together.
Lorena, what was your approach to the visual style of this doc?
I think that because we wanted to keep the world of the subject integrated in their interviews and also in the B-roll, we both decided that these wide shots would be the most important element visually. And not only a full shot, I'm talking about a wide shot that covers everything where they are and everything that's surrounding them. And I think that because we were doing these shots in this very frontally, they're like front in the camera, it was very, in a way, it's a wide shot, but it also felt very intimate because we're integrated so much of the world. So I think that we went through this process of researching a lot of references that are more journalistic as opposed to cinema-based. And I think that helped us a lot to be able to tell the story as genuine as possible, as opposed to trying to force an emotion into the narrative.
Now, this is going to be a challenging question, and it might not be a fair one, but can you articulate the difference between cinematic and journalistic and what that meant to you?
Well, because I studied, I went to film school. What I mean is not that obviously journalistic images cannot be cinematic, or that cinematic images cannot be journalistic. I meant more that because we're referencing more photographic work as opposed to work that was made that was made for fiction film. We're not going through shot deck, looking into. I love shot deck, but that's not what we're doing. We are definitely doing things that spoke to us in a way that was more journalistic. That's what I mean by it.
And what did you use gear-wise on this?
We used the Canon C500 Mark II. It was the perfect camera for this project. It was. We had two. At most times we had both two cameras. We all operated. It was very collaborative. So the C500 really helped us being nimble. It was very lightweight, very compact, and it allowed us to just move around very fast and being able to, even, for example, there were times that I was shooting and maybe Isabel wanted to shoot something and I could just give it to her without needing an AC, maybe without needing a lot of just time to reset. So it was very easy for us to work with the camera. And we used the ultra primes, size Arri ultra primes. Yeah.
All right, then I'm going to hit you with another aspect there. A lot of times, a prime can be a liability in shooting documentary and shooting more natural.
I don't believe that.
Great, please. Contradict me, I love it.
So is this on? Okay. I don't think so. I think that it helped us a lot with keeping the frame as precise as we wanted to. It forced us to really think about how exactly what needed to be in the frame, as opposed to just being very quick because we have a zoom and because we can just go in and do a close-up or a medium shot. And it just allowed us to be very thoughtful about everything that was in the frame. So that's why I thought it was not a liability.
If I could piggyback on that, because I am... Oh, is this on? Hello? Oh, okay. If I could piggyback on that, as someone who loves shooting observational verite documentary on primes, maybe sometimes there's certainly moments where you have to read the room, especially with verite where you are like in proximity, you're very close to someone, but there's such value. There's just a different methodology in like how you're working and also how it really kind of is a testament to ultimately your relationship with the subjects and the film participants. And I think one of the most amazing things that relates both to our gear and how we decided to work and how we all came together is sort of the hybridity of, again, like the journalistic verite documentary style and the more high-level cinema. And, for Isabel and I, who are used to just pure immersive verite filmmaking, that's our favorite kind, that's how we got into cinematography. This was different because this was purely interview-based, and to have Lorena's beautiful vision as she's also a beautiful narrative cinematographer, and like she is an amazing gaffer of her own right, and like to have those hybrid qualities on set of like being able to react quickly when we needed to and having that sort of versatile camera to do that, but while also being like very precise in our interviews. I think both our team and the cameras kind of like really facilitated that, if that makes sense.
That absolutely makes sense. That's amazing. Lorena mentioned sort of passing off the camera and all three of you operating. How did that synergy and how did that energy develop, and what was decided, and when was it tossed across the room like a football?
Well, it is our first time. It's my first time working with both of them, and it felt like we've been working for a long, long time. Yeah. And it was just very, very easy to do that. The times that these things the passing of the camera. It was more, for example, an interview is over and we have to move to another location really fast, or we have to just get out of the house, and we need to get B-roll, and we need to get more details of the family. So it was very useful to have the camera, and being nimble and just get as much done as we can. So that's where it came handy, how the camera, the compactness.
There's also beautiful B-roll in the film. It's kind of hard to describe stylistically, so I hope you guys will see it. Because it's very archive-driven. We spent, as you can see, so much time thinking about the interviews. But this aforementioned segment where it's like current day of the family, we wanted to get details of what their life looked like. And sometimes Cassie would see a shot and she would go out and grab it. We were working on such a tight schedule that there were times that it would just be like, oh, let me take the camera and go grab a shot. It felt deeply, deeply collaborative. Like no one was like if the camera was a football, no one was a ball hog. We were just
we definitely trusted each other really fast, and we were like, yeah, get whatever you can.
Right, and especially again, and it kind of relates back to the prime conversation, like and sensitivity and being nimble at the same time. It's kind of a dance. But like the primes, we all love primes for the level of intimacy, but it's also, I think we all have similar approaches to how we read a room, how we are in a room. And yeah, so it was almost telepathic, and then technically it was with the gear itself, like just being able to be nimble and like hop off. Like our interviews were what, average 4 or 5 hours?
Yeah.
But in between, there were little moments that would happen, and then, telepathically or with a look, Isabel or Lorena would be like, "See, like look his tattoo, like it's Selena," and I would be able to like quickly, and then Isabel would encourage me like, "Cass, can you get off the sticks for a second?" And I could, quick release, get off, and have a little verite moment in between our like beautiful interview setups that Lorena crafted. So yeah.
What was the rest of the crew besides the three of you?
Besides us, we had a gaffer and we had a key grip from Texas. They're amazing. And we also, the production department, they were also kind of the camera department too.
Oh, yes.
Our producer
Daniel
and our
Kendall.
associate producer, Daniel Torres and Kendall Marinici, they were amazing. They were our DIT support.
AC, Kendall was with me at the rental house.
Yes,
Day
definitely. It was great. It was the dream.
Well, and I should say also that it was like a threading the needle of like wanting all of the support that we needed, but wanting to keep the footprint as small as possible. Yeah. So during the interviews, it was just us three in the room. And that's because I wanted the interviews to feel deeply, deeply intimate. And in my experience, it's just impossible to get that if you have too many people in the room. It just is. So despite having this incredible technical support, our producers were able to kind of support as well, because we didn't have this big crew. Like we tried to streamline it as much as possible.
You've brought up intimate a couple of times, and it's a topic that I like to have with different documentary filmmakers. How do you achieve that, and how do you achieve the trust and the connection with the subjects when you're sticking a camera in their face and putting them often in a very awkward position, being very vulnerable and talking about intimate and emotional aspects? How the hell do you do that?
Yeah, and I want to add to that question because for the people that don't know, Selena, she's an artist, a musician that passed away. I don't know if you mentioned this, and the way that happened was very tragic, and the interviews were even more intimate than what I was used to. So
yeah. Well, I can answer that question, but then I want Cassie to answer too, because Cassie's work is so good at that, both in her photographic work and in her filming and her cinematography work. But I'll answer that question for this project specifically, which is that I spent over a year getting to know the family before we brought cameras in. We went back and forth to Texas before I even brought out my camera at all, even my like still camera, which for me is like kind of a hard exercise because I'm so used to wanting to hold a camera. It's almost like, yeah, this is my impulse. But on this, I just fought that, and we didn't bring any camera gear for over a year. And so in doing that, like, we built up a relationship separate from the cameras. And so when the cameras were there, that relationship and that trust was already there. And I think you really feel it in the interviews. To Lorena's point, I mean, the family opened up in extraordinary ways. I mean, their generosity in sharing their experiences, not just with me, but with like the world and all of you, hopefully soon. I mean, it's really moving, and you want to pay respect to that by making a small footprint. Like, I've been on the other side of the camera begrudgingly, including right now. And it's really anxiety inducing. And when you have the lights and like, I think we take for granted that like we need all these different things to make it look good. We take for granted we don't take for granted. We often forget how stressful it is to be sweating under these lights and whatnot. So I'm always just an advocate of like getting the best quality thing you can get with the least amount of equipment. And, you know, like, I'll just say one footnote before I really want Cassie to answer this question, because I always wonder this about her work. It feels so personal. I'm always like, how did you do that? But the last thing, I think, and I feel very passionate about this, like very, very passionately about this, I think that women DPs are often deterred because of all the technical jibbery jabs. I think for me, it was really intimidating for a long time because I'd go to like rental houses and it'd be like, duh, like the HDMI cable, whatever. And like, I just didn't know or care. And as it turns out, oftentimes it just doesn't matter. Like, it's very simple. Like, across every single camera, from your iPhone to an Alexa to a 35, like, the basics are always the same. And like, everyone should be encouraged to ask questions and to not be afraid, because it really, really stopped me for a very long time. Anyway, I say all of this because I think setups are often very overcomplicated, and they can look very beautiful, very, very simply. And so that was kind of like the ethos of how we set up the interviews, which I think also lends to intimacy in how you relate to people when you're talking to them. But anyways, let's throw it to Cassie, because I mean, you guys should check out her work. It's always just so, it really does this so successfully.
Thank you. Well, let me see if I can pick up. I guess for me, coming into this, so when I'm typically, in the space I've been working in the last few years, it's usually just me, maybe one other camera person, but in a more immersive observational environment, oftentimes in, frankly, very traumatic spaces where folks are going through some of the hardest experiences of their lives. And I'm tasked to step in with a camera, and I don't really like the phrase "fly on the wall" anymore. Back when I was a photojournalism student, that was ingrained in me, and it was definitely a way to kind of think about this idea of not taking so much space and being respectful. But it's not fly on the wall. What I realized over the years is that it's about just being extremely respectful of the people who are not even aware of like just how much they're allowing you to enter into their universe, especially when they're going through the most hardest thing of their lives. And yeah, you can check out my work and the sad stories that I filmed in the past. But so when it came to this, well, first of all, I'm a Selena super fan. And when I found out my friend Isabel was going to be directing this, I was like, of course, this is perfect, amazing. Did not in a million years think she would bring me onto the team. I was just like so stoked that, you know, she was going to direct this and it was going to be in good hands. So I very intimately followed the story of this family, and I love the music and the making of the music. And I think why you all should come on Sunday is that this is the first time that the family truly is coming forward in a way. And circling back to the sensitivity of it all, these interviews was the first time really in a kind of therapeutic way coming out and talking about some things that they really don't want to relive. And Isabel and Daniel and Kendall, the team, that they really did that groundwork to make them comfortable so that when we came in, we could nurture the space of safety. And I think that was even more important than the technical. And then, and so it was, for me though, a unique situation with like these celebrities, especially that I'm super fans of like trying to keep it cool in the room, you know, and it's like, it's the three of us, and then, you know, Abraham, Selena's father, and he's a very intimidating, powerful guy, but I know him so well through this Hollywood movie version of him, and Selena, and then Isabel, sorry, I almost called you Selena. Isabel reminding us to kind of like, you know, keep it keep it cool. But I think also the takeaway was that I think all of us are very sensitive, high emotion, we allow vulnerability. And I think while I did keep it cool and I didn't like super fan in the moment, there were moments where like I felt I was allowed to cry if it was a beautiful moment unfolding. And I think where we're all kind of compatible is that we show vulnerability in the spaces that we move in, and then that extends to how we operate our cameras. And yeah, did that?
No, I mean, I think in summary, that I totally agree. I mean, it just matters so much who the crew is, like in terms of getting intimacy in the way that you're filming. I mean, it's based in trust. It's also based in kind of a sense of safety. And so I care a lot about the personalities of the folks that I'm with when I'm filming with participants, because I just need to know and trust entirely that that they are going to treat the moment and the participants with respect. And that's, again, another big part of the homework that I did. I mean, I'd worked with Cassie, but with Lorena, everyone told me that she was amazing in that regard. So it's one of the things that I ask about almost first when I work with new people.
Yeah, I think for me, as a director, producer, the energy of the crew is so important to me, to make sure that we're building the right environment, not only for the subjects, but for the crew itself, and making sure that everybody's on the same page, and you don't want any bad eggs in there. And I think that empathy is one of the most important tools for a documentary filmmaker. And Cassie, I think naively early in my, well, I don't want to judge it, but early in my career shooting docs, I felt it was my job as a DP or as an operator to disappear, right? To blend and be invisible. And I later realized that that was a mistake, and that the more that I connected the way the director did to the subjects, the more comfortable they were. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
that's what I learned too. I think that's what I was trying to get at too with this like concept of fly on the wall. That's what we're taught to do in the beginning. But the more and more you do it over the years, and you're coming in and out of these people's lives, you realize, no, like you're part of the story, you're part of the experience. And you're channeling, really. You're channeling their experience, but you're part of it. You're absorbing what they're experiencing, and then where does that go when you go home? There's a lot of, and so to say that you're disappearing is, yeah, I don't like saying that as much anymore. But it's about, like you're saying, being respectful, and maybe like just disappearing in that way of just not taking up ego space. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
I really like that, not taking up ego space. I'm going to have to digest that one and chew on that a little bit.
I just made that up.
That was lovely. I might quote you on that at some point. Not taking up ego space. That's a good lesson for me. Curb the ego. And again, I just derailed myself where I was going next. Yeah, I completely just lost every train of thought that I had. So, hey, how you doing? Let me open it up to all of you guys, and I'm going to have you help me out here because, yeah, I just lost my whole train of thought in being emotional. Please, yes. Can we grab a mic for the audience? I'm going to go a little bit early to them. Oh, that's very sweet. There's one coming out, too.
So I'm very curious about how you weave the whole story, because as you mentioned, like interviews are 4 hours long, and that's only one. I'm sure there were plenty of those. When you went in from the start, you knew, of course, a lot about Selena's life, but not everything, and there were a lot that came out of those interviews. When did you start thinking, oh, I know what the story is going to look like for the documentary, and how do you weave all those little pieces that you filmed into a coherent narrative?
I mean, that was the hardest part. I mean, we went, so to kind of just go step by step, very practically speaking. So we started with research, and that was a very laborious, intensive, comprehensive task. We made an outline, a timeline. We read all materials that were out there about Selena and her family, and the music and the context of their music. We did a lot of research. Step two, we, over the course of over a year and a half, went back and forth from Corpus to digitize the family's archive. They both saw the closet. They have a closet at Q Productions, which is like their headquarters, which is just hundreds of videotapes and VHS tapes and film. And so me and Daniel Torres, the producer who's back there, that's why I keep looking over there, we just went through everything in there and then logged it. We brought it back, we digitized it, and then a robust and incredibly talented and hardworking team logged all of the footage. Keely, who's sitting there, she did a lot of that. But I mean, it was really a group effort. Kendall, our co-producer, was overseeing it. Like, it was just like logging and logging and logging everything, and then we ingested it, and then they organized it by year. All of Selena's interviews were outputted and transcribed. And then me and the editor just watched everything and basically just started putting things on a timeline. And then once we kind of start putting things on the timeline, we transcribed all of the interviews, which are 4 to 6 hours long. I forget how many we did. I think it was like 5 or 6. But we transcribed all of them, and then I did paper selects, and then we started inputting those into the film. So that's basically, and along the way you learn a lot of things, you find a lot of things, and the story, the structure, you know, we had a general idea and we didn't deviate too far from that, but the themes and ideas that were explored within the film certainly kind of took on a shape and a life of its own.
And you two talked a little bit earlier about prevising the interviews. What exactly did you do, and what did that look like?
Well, it was more research-based as opposed to doing a formal previs. So that's what we meant by it. Yeah, we didn't do a formal previs. It was just getting these references and making it work with what we know the space looked like already. Daniel and Isabel did a very thorough location scouting because we didn't have enough time for me to have a proper scouting before the production. So we had a lot of pictures, and we were able to visualize how everything is going to look like at the end with this. Yeah.
Yeah, and as Lorena has said, I mean, I think the most important part of how we conceptualize the framing of these interviews was to really feel them in their environment. So like a lot of the location scouting was based on trying to find environments that like spoke to the personality of the person and the way that they're living their life now. But in addition to doing journalistic imagery work, is very, very photographic. Like, we looked at a lot of medium format work, a lot of portraiture work, and we just tried to replicate that. You know, an example is that I've always been taught to have a lot of depth of field in my interviews, pull the chair 20 feet away, have it on a 2.8, and have that fall out. Like, that's how I was taught to do documentary interviews. We didn't do that. Like, we had them up against the wall, and I mean, we had to pull it out a little bit, but like, but like we had the, you know, we wanted it to feel a bit flatter than maybe I'm used to, or that people are used to seeing in documentary. And I think that lends to it feeling very photographic. So we talked a lot about this. Like, none of these things were very deliberate. And me and Lorena, like, just pulled a lot of images and talked about them. Like, we went through them and we're like, I like this, natural lighting, da 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 da. So
it helped a lot to build a visual language for ourselves. So we know what we both like, what we don't like for this, and that research, it was a lot and really helped for us to make quick decisions on set.
So before, I'm going to get back to you guys. Again, that was just a tease, and I wanted to warm you up thinking about questions. So hang on to those for a second. But I'm going to circle this back because we are sitting in Canon right now. So I'm going to circle it back, and we talked a little bit about the 5D, right? And both of you are photographers. You obviously have a photographic background. And as a cinematographer, what did that mean as a game changer to the industry, and how did that affect you? How does the Canon tool affect you?
We were just reminiscing. I mean, I went to school for photography. Cassie was an incredibly accomplished photographer for many, many years. For me, my first digital camera was a 5D, and my first, I developed a photo essay about transgender immigrants that were seeking political asylum here in the United States. And in working on this photo project, I was like, this is the wrong medium. Like, I need people to hear these stories. Like, I need them to hear these stories. And I had been taking photographs on the 5D, and I was like, I'm just gonna press record. And that is literally what made me a documentary filmmaker. So we can thank the 5D for being here today. But truly, I mean, it was a game changer because it was so light, and it was so, again, talking about just like being intimidated by that barrier of entry and being like, the cameras are so scary. It was just so, it was in your hands and it looked good. So yeah, and I think, yeah, Cassie and I had a similar experience. I feel like that's how you got into it.
That's how I started my photographic career as well. I started in photojournalism, and I went to the International Center of Photography, where they're very, all about their history of the photography and the rules. And I was there just right after the digital revolution. So my first camera as a photojournalist was the Canon 5D Mark II at the time. So that just if you guys are Canon nerds, you understand the timeline there. But so it was like, and so as I've grown as both a photojournalist and then eventually pivoted into cinematography, like Isabel's saying, something about the Canon is so comfortable, and if there's some sense of home. And interestingly enough, I think the imagery that comes out of a Canon camera is very nostalgic, warm, and homey. And I've always loved that, like, color space. And as I'm a self-taught cinematographer by way of just working and transitioning from photojournalism. And so when being introduced to cinema cameras, similarly, like the Canon cinema system was like right in line as I was like pivoting. The C300 was coming out, the 500, and it had that same kind of like entry point that Isabel's referring to.
It's very intuitive.
Just very user-friendly. But for me, as now I've grown and I'm a huge camera nerd and I love all the camera systems and all the lenses and down to try all of them, there's something about like returning to the Canon. I think it's like no mistake that this was shot on it because the color space is so nostalgic, warm, and that's what these guys were trying to convey. And yeah, that user-friendliness, adaptability, it just was very compatible with this blend of styles of working. But yeah.
We love Canon.
Yeah, you need to put them on payroll. That was pretty darn good. Okay, so let me open it back up again. Anybody have any questions for these three? Yes, sir.
Did you guys test lens packages to kind of define the look, or did you guys know what you wanted?
So he jumped on that before we got him a mic, but the question was, did they test any lens packages beforehand, or did they?
Yeah, I think you got it. Yeah, thank you.
Or did you just know that it was the Aries Zeiss Ultra Primes?
Intuitive. No, we did research, and we just decided on the Ultra Primes based on that research, not based on any testing that we were able to do.
And Lorena I just trusted anything she told me.
Well, that was an easy answer. Who else? Yes, please. Let's bring a mic to you there so they can hear you at home. It'll come up.
Hello?
There you go.
I was just wondering, like, for the editing process, like, how did that work? Like, working with the family? Or, like, did you have them, like, as a part of it? Or, yeah, just kind of like...
Yeah, they reviewed cuts as we were editing, and particularly in the latter part, once the film was kind of watchable. And they gave feedback, and we integrated a lot of the notes were just fantastic, and we kind of had conversations around them.
Don't be shy. Okay, we have one in the front row here. Thank you so much.
Hi, amazing panel. This is obviously a very important, intimate story for a lot of people, even just, that have a connection to the music, myself included. Did you start preparing this idea for the documentary and then come approach the family? Or did you hear from some way that the family was ready to tell this story that they might have not been ready for in, past 30 years or so?
It was the second. They were ready. They wanted to share their story. They wanted to share their archive. They wanted to sit down and talk about their experiences. And my first film, Mija, was about what it means to be Mexican American, what it means to have mixed status families. It just dealt with a lot of themes around Mexican American identity. And they watched it. The folks at Polygrams at Universal, they watched it, and they thought I would be a good fit. And I met them, and we really did hit it off. And then the family essentially chose someone to come in and tell their story.
I'm curious now. I'm going to follow up on that. Was the time that you met with them ahead of time before you were shooting anything, all of your development time, was that all budgeted and covered, or was that on you to take care of it?
No, I was really spoiled on this project. I think it's an independent film. We are seeking distribution after our premiere tomorrow, and I loved that because it gave me a lot of creative flexibility, and the production team was so incredibly generous in them really trusting my vision. And basically, sorry, I lost my train of thought as well.
That's okay. It was. I threw a totally curveball question at you there, but you got to the gist of it. And very grateful for the support on that. I think a lot of times in documentary we're kind of going on our own.
That's the thing. We're so used to making independent films and being really scrappy. This is the first film I've ever directed that I haven't been out hustling, trying to put it together. And so it was a different experience in that way. It gave us a lot of flexibility it gave us a lot of space to be really creative. And so that developmental process was nurtured through Polygram and Universal support.
Phenomenal. And both of you had worked on Vice prior. You'd worked with HBO on that. I know that you have a couple of awards. I believe Mihai was also award recognized. So you're no newbie to this field. And it's wonderful that the family came to you and trusted you. Do you feel like you had that immediately, or you still had to earn it?
Oh, no, I definitely still had to earn it. I mean, I think every documentary relationship is it's a relationship. I'm a filmmaker. This is their lives. They're entrusting me to tell their story. It's an ever-evolving conversation in every story that you do ever, as both a journalist and a documentarian. So, no, I mean, we had to, I guess earn it is maybe the wrong word. We just really had to get to a point where we both felt ready to do these interviews. I mean, these interviews are just excavating their lives, and I asked really probing questions, which sometimes was uncomfortable for me. And obviously, I told them they didn't have to answer it if they didn't want to. But to get to that point where you can ask questions that are very sensitive, you have to build a lot of trust.
All right, I'm walking away with a couple of phrases. Leave room for the ego and excavating their life stories. I'm loving all of that. Anybody else have a last question for these three? Yes, please, in the third row here.
Hi, this is like kind of two questions in one, but I was just wondering if you guys had like a list of questions for the interviews already pre-planned, or it was more like on the spot, or like after the interviews, if you were like, oh, I wanted to ask more of this, or maybe one of the family was like, oh, I wanted to like say anything more, or do you guys think you got everything you wanted from the interviews?
So the process by which I did the interviews on this is the way that I do all of my interviews and have always done all my interviews. It's always just worked for me. I spent weeks, months preparing questions. I think for each interview I had 20 pages of questions. The way that I do it is I organize it both by chronology and by topic. And so it's like a mixture of both. Like I try to start at the beginning and move through a story or a sequence of interviews and then try to clump them together by topic so that I'm sure to kind of I get all the questions for that topic. I have conversations. I review those questions with my producers multiple times. In this case, I have a longtime friend, Chris Bachman, who I worked with on Mija, who I just trust very deeply, and he read Selena's biography, and then he reviewed the questions, and we had conversations about them. And then you meet your crew, and they have questions, and they say, well, can you ask them this, or I'm curious about this, and so I spent so much time preparing the questions. I mean, that's really one of the central parts of my work on this film. And then I print them out, and I put them in a binder, and then I put them next to me, and I have a conversation. And I just spend days and days reviewing them and going over them, and they would be setting up interview shots, and I would be in the car reviewing them. And not memorizing them, but just trying to make sure that I'm getting the essence of all of them. On this project, I had my producer with the binder crossing off questions as I was asking them. And then at the end, I would say, Daniel, is there anything that I missed or anything that anyone else wants to ask? And he would kind of go through and make sure I hadn't missed anything. And the crew was able to, they were both able to contribute. But I always have conversations in my interviews. I don't like looking at interview questions. I never look at interview questions because I think it takes it out. And sometimes a conversation will go in places that you totally didn't expect. And in some ways, that's why these conversations were sometimes 5 or 6 hours long and we'd have to take pee breaks and snack breaks because we'd go down a route that was really interesting and we had it prepared for, and you want to give space for that.
Fantastic. When is the premiere?
Tomorrow night at 8:45 p.m.
Where?
We're so excited, yeah.
And where's it at?
It's at the library. And if you guys don't get in or can't make it, we have a few more screenings, obviously, throughout the week. you could catch it online, and hopefully soon we'll figure out where it will be available for the public.
I'm sure it's going to get snagged up very quickly.
We hope so.
Thank you to you three for sharing this today. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all of you for coming on behalf of Canon and American Cinematographer. Everybody enjoy the festival. Go see the film.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Thank you.